All right. Hey, if you've been on LinkedIn this week, you have probably seen the panic associated with a new MIT study that recently came out. And there's headlines everywhere talking about this study that quantitatively proves that AI is already capable of replacing 12% of our entire economy. It's called Project Iceberg, and it's appropriately named because it sounds like a disaster movie. Now, here's the thing. I read the full 21-page technical research paper, so you don't have to. And I don't think many of the people who are writing about this did the same. But what I can tell you is what this research shows isn't a disaster movie at all. It's a simulation. Okay. And like any simulation, the devil is in the data and the inputs and how it's structured and what you actually do with it and the conclusions that you draw and the actions you take in response. So I'm Christopher Lind, and this is Future Focused. And today I want to drill down into this MIT Project Iceberg research and go into 4 layers of the data to help you understand what's actually real about it so that you can speak intelligently to it and you can respond appropriately when you hear things or as you're making decisions in the ever-increasing AI-driven world that we live in. And then I'm going to tell you what I think is one of the single most common reactions that are popping up in my consulting work that I think is a huge mistake, which is getting rid of all your junior staff. And I truly think this is an organizational catastrophe if you go that path. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. But before we get into it, for those of you who've been watching for a while, thank you for coming back. I genuinely appreciate the community that's around here. If you're not already, I get to see the statistics. I know a lot of you are not subscribed and following the content, so I would love it if you did that. I'd also encourage you to share it with somebody else who may benefit from it. Maybe that person in the meeting that said, "Did you hear AI can already replace 11.7% of jobs?" Just send it to them and go, "You know what? Hey, you should maybe listen to this." And if you so find the content I create helpful and want to support it officially, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Christopher Lind and pledge your support to help me keep this stuff coming. Okay, so let's get into it. And this first part, I want to break down what the real research actually is, because I think so much of this is just coming from a place of people not really understanding this. They just hear MIT research and they assume whatever comes after that is legit. Now, I said before, this is a simulation, okay? This is like the SimCity economy. They weren't actually, digging into the real things and actually digging into companies and looking at what's going on in this. This was all based on, it wasn't even a survey of real workers, okay? It was based on a large population model. So they created a hypothetical 151 million digital agents, which is representative of the US workforce. Now they pulled that data from the ONET database, if you really want to get nerdy about it. So you can go look this up and you can see. So it's out of the it's the Department of Labor standard. So it's a legit database. I'm not saying what it has is not accurate, but they looked at this database of 32,000 skills like complex problem solving, processing payroll, things like that, things that you would see in a skills database. And then they didn't actually test the AI on that. They just looked at this database of skills, and then they looked at the AI tools and said, what do these AI tools claim they can do? And is there a match? Do the AI tools say that it can do this thing in this database? If so, then yes. And there was about 13,000 tools that they looked at. So you can imagine by the time you take 13,000 AI tools that all have a lot of claims about what they can do. Now, whether or not they actually can do that is a completely different story, which is not part of this study. But what they claim they can do, put it alongside this comprehensive 32,000 job skills that you have. And then they played a matching game. They played LLM matchmaker. They said, if there's a skill in this database and we can find a match to what a tool says it can do, we count it as an exposed or vulnerable job skill for automation. Okay, this is essentially what they did at scale. So there's a couple numbers. If you're probably going to see these popping up all over the one place. And the big one that I hear all the time is 11.7%. And that number is being stated as these are the jobs that are capable of being automated. Just hang on to that, because you're going to learn more about that later. That's not what it is, but more on that later. Then there's the actual number of the skills, because that's even a misrepresentation. Okay, there's 16%. When they actually played LLM matchmaker, 16% actually matched. Okay, so they were able to find a 16% match with that. And then there's a 2.2% match that's specifically in the tech software space. And it's not a match in terms of skills, but in economic value. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. A lot of the numbers and percentages that you're hearing have to do with labor value. How much would someone pay for this versus the skills themselves? But the big thing to understand is that we're talking about a database of skills being compared to a database of AI tool claims and what AI tools say they can do, and playing a big game of matchmaker based on the actual number of actual workers in the US workforce, and then saying, okay, now, like, what does that tell us? Now, I don't want to say that this research is completely useless. There's a lot of value that can come out of there. But hopefully, even at this point, hearing what it actually was should have you going, well, wait a minute. Now, how are they drawing these other conclusions that I'm already hearing bouncing all over social media? And that's the right response to be having. Now, you can go look up this study. It's only 21 pages, and you're going to see, some things that I'm going to pull up here and there. But I mean, ultimately, I'd encourage you to go check this out. But that's what actually Project Iceberg was, so that you understand what really is going on to it. So I want to talk about four of the big, and I'm going to kind of like go deeper, drill into this, but there's four big, I'm just going to say lies that are just all over the place that I would say, nah, that's a lie. That's a lie. So there's four. So let's talk about it. The first one is this headline. Okay. The headline that AI can replace 12% of jobs right now. Factually wrong, even based on the data itself. Okay, not so fast with this. The study explicitly states that the goal of this was to look at wage value exposure. It was not looking at how many jobs can it take. It's saying, what is the monetary value of the skills that it can hypothetically perform? So this is not a research study on job displacement. It's a research study on the economic value of what AI can do. Okay, hypothetically, going back to my explanation. Okay, the thing that bothers me the most about this headline, though, is the fact that they don't even get the number right, because it's all 11.7% of jobs can be displaced. That's not even the iceberg. Okay, this is the iceberg right here. And if you look at it, 11.7 is just the under the water, the stuff that is not part of the big concentrated tech hub, the tech adoption stuff. So you have to add those numbers together first. So it's really, you're talking about, if you're going to misrepresent the number, misrepresent the right number, which is 13.9%. But please don't misrepresent the number, because the entire study says this is not about job displacement. It is about economic value, wage value exposure. How much of our economic wage is exposed? Okay. So as an example, if you pay an accountant and they make $100,000 and AI can hypothetically do 10% of those tasks, if you were to break the job down into tasks and say, okay, AI can do 13% of it, if we're going to be 13.9%, then you would say, okay, like then $13,900 of economic value could hypothetically be achieved with AI. That is hopefully myth one busted in terms of what is being promoted and what is being said. Let's go a level deeper. Okay, so you're following me so far. So let's say you go, okay, I get it. So you're saying AI can replace roughly 13% or 14%, somewhere in there, of the economic value of skills. If we were to look across all the skills that we pay money for in the US economy, AI can now consume all of that. And I have a whole lot to say on that in and of itself. But anyway, even there, I would say, well, hold on a minute now. Hold on a minute. Because it only looked at digital tools. Okay. So when we're talking about the scope of this research, there are a lot of jobs and skills that have nothing to do with digital tools, including physical robotics. So we're not even just saying like technology is not involved at all. This is 100% human labor only. Like there's even sectors of the economy and the skill set that is not, it includes technology like robotics, but was not captured in this. So if you're in manufacturing or logistics or retail, this model is essentially blind to your physical reality. This is very much heavily biased towards white collar office administrative work. Now that's important if you're a leader who's leading a manufacturing or a logistics or a retail environment, and you hear this and you go, wow, that means AI can do this much. That was not even in the scope of what we're talking about here. You essentially, not that you can completely dismiss the research, but you should go, well, wait a minute. Now that actually may not have the same weight for me. Doesn't mean I ignore it, but it doesn't have the same weight for me as it would maybe if I am a leader making some decisions or making some considerations about AI work related to a very, office-oriented administrative type job. Make sense? Okay. So there's myth number two that already is busted, hopefully. If we continue down this chain, the next one is, okay, well, all right, we're arguing back and forth here over what this is, but it can replace, AI has demonstrated it can replace 12% of the economic value of a knowledge worker. Is that an accurate statement, Christopher? Is that a logical conclusion to draw from this new MIT research? Again, not so fast, because if you remember what I said about how this whole research project was done and the way it was handled, this is based on purely theoretical capability. This is not based on performance. At no point in this research was a human asked to do something, and then AI asked to do something, and then they looked at it and said, you know what? They both demonstrated equal value in their performance of this. That was never part of this. Now, if you remember recently, you can go back and look at it. I recently talked about some research that did do that, and I will tell you the numbers are a lot worse. Okay? What AI is actually able to do at the same acceptable level, not even great, but just like acceptable, is nowhere near this 12, 13, whatever percent. But it's so important to realize this was purely SimCity. This was a simulation. It was, well, in theory, if we had a skill and we had a system that says it can do a thing, we can match that. Now, anybody who has ever done any sort of technological implementation knows that just because a tool claims it can do something, or technically it meets said requirements, does not mean it can optimize a workflow. It certainly does not mean it can perform at a level that you would say, yeah, we don't need a person doing that anymore. There is a vast crevasse between these things. And I want to really hit that home because so many of the conversations I'm seeing right now are misrepresenting this. Again, not even understanding. This was purely theoretical on claims, no real work of examination of what actually happened and is performance there. So you cannot make a decision based on this, on what you can actually expect to see. And that doesn't completely dismiss the value of this, but you need to understand that is a limitation of this study. Okay. Fourth and foremost, last try, right? So I feel like, Christopher, you've kind of like ripped this study apart. Is there, like, okay, well, fine. So AI can theoretically touch 13.9% of knowledge, skills, administrative skills that we know about that would be included in this database that AI tools are saying that they can do. Correct? Not quite. I'm gonna push even further on that, because the model, when you really dig into this, hidden in this, it's not hidden, but if you don't read it, you'll miss it. Hidden in this, you will find that the model itself that they use to do this analysis relies on a massive assumption that I think anyone who hears this will go, oh, yeah, wow, okay. And that assumption is called skill transferability, okay? And what I mean by that is all of this research assumes that if an AI shows it can do a skill, perform a skill in a certain area, let's say it can write Python code, it is also highly likely that it will be able to draft a legal contract because the underlying logic is similar. Okay, so it's basing this off of, well, if essentially the skills required are the same, then we're just going to count it as being able to do that thing. And I hope even me saying this, you're going, wait a minute, what? Write Python code, draft a legal contract. Those are like completely different. Yes, you're right. Now, does that mean that there is no such thing as skill transferability? No, there is skill transferability. If you're able to do a thing, you also can learn and quickly adapt to do something else. I talk about it all the time about transferable skills are a legit thing. They're important. They are a huge limitation on the way we think about jobs and careers. So I don't want to dismiss skill transferability, and don't take this as me making the case that, nope, if you know law, that's all you know, you can't do anything else. No, that's not true. But this is a huge assumption that, oh, it's equally good at it. It did this, therefore it can equally do this, which establishes kind of this upper bound of the risk that it assumes. But any executive, honestly, any seasoned professional knows domain expertise matters. Like, there's a big curve. Even if you're in the same domain and you shift industries, it's not that you can't adapt, but you don't just flip a switch and everything works. Context changes, all of these domain expertises, they don't just flip a switch overnight. So a tool that might be 90% accurate in coding might only be 40% accurate in legal and compliance. And so to just simply say, well, we looked at all these skills and therefore if it passed on critical thinking, yeah, like all these jobs require critical thinking. So it consumes all of that economic value or potentially is exposed. What? No, not quite, not nearly, like not at all. Is that an accurate conclusion to draw? So I hope those four, and I could probably go on about this for another hour, and I'm not going to, because my goal was just to go through these and at least help you go, okay, so you described the study. Now, how does that translate into these myths that are literally being permeated all over social media and news feeds everywhere, so that you can see them and go, well, okay, I do remember that. Okay, yeah, no, that's not quite right. So that you can contextualize, while at the same time holding on to the fact you don't just throw this research out and go, yeah, it's all bunk, AI can't do anything. No, because the reality is people make decisions based on this, and AI is capable of doing things. And in many ways, I think the iceberg piece, actually going back to this image, I think it actually does reveal something, which is we're often spending so much time talking about this surface index, these high tech skills. You hear about AI taking tech jobs and all this, like you hear about all this stuff, but it's like there's a significantly larger percentage of what AI is capable of that I would say is untapped economic value that is going unaddressed. And I think that is a really important critical takeaway right here that actually, if anything, should push people who may be going, oh, AI is not for me. AI is big to actually wrong. And you can say, well, but Christopher, you just dismissed all the realistic, like legitimate, tangible value of this, or you're saying that AI can't necessarily for sure do it based on that. Is correct. However, what this is showing is that there is connections to this, and that means you should be exploring it, because if you're not at least looking at what AI can do on this under the water iceberg component, you are missing out, and someone else is, which means someone else might come eat your lunch. Okay, so that's why I say the study as it's being represented is infuriating to me at best. But that doesn't mean the study is bunk and you shouldn't do anything with it. Now, I'm going to stop on that because, like I said, I could go much further on that, but I won't. And you can send me messages. You can ask other questions. I have a live stream where I'll answer more about it. There's other channels you can get to. But I want to move on to the so what? Like, Christopher, give me something tangible that I can hook into. What's something you're seeing people do other than spreading misinformation and making stupid comments and statements all over the internet about this and misrepresenting the study? Here's the strategic response that I think is really important to consider right now, because I want to go from just myth busting this to saying, okay, if you're a leader, if you're in an organization, if you're someone who's making decisions about this, and I gave you a couple things, you should also be thinking about, but I want to focus on the early talent trap that I'm seeing pop up all over, because even from this research, if you look at a lot of this stuff, you can run in and fall into the trap of seeing, okay, 11.7, 13.9, whatever wages are exposed, and many knee-jerk reactions. And this is happening not just based on this research, but based on a lot of other things is, okay, this means we should be cutting headcount and letting AI do that. That's a logical conclusion people are making off of this. And then they jump to, and here's the part I really want to focus on. And since we know the really contextual higher order stuff, AI is not there. I maybe have accepted that. Maybe let's shoot at the junior staff. Let's go for the entry level folks or the lower tier, from the job rating categories in our job tier system, and say entry level stuff. We probably don't need those people anymore. We don't need early career talent. And I am literally seeing this everywhere in the consulting work I'm doing. I'm seeing companies make this mistake left and right where they're freezing headcount on early career jobs. I'm seeing them eliminate roles that they deem like lower order work. And it is a massive, massive mistake. And I want to articulate why, so that you don't make this mistake, because I promise you, if you make this mistake, it is going to be infinitely harder for you to try and clean this up than to just avoid the mistake in the first place. And I want people to avoid the mistake, not make it, and then come back and go, boy, yeah, you know what, Christopher? You were right in that podcast. Whoops. No, I don't want anybody to do this. And now here's my point, okay? That I'm going to call it the talent debt argument. That's the argument I'm going to make here. And that talent debt argument is, if you automate the drudgery, what you would consider administrative, lower order work, and say, we're going to automate all of that and then just get rid of all the people and eliminate we're going to free up the money by getting rid of those people. You are fundamentally breaking your apprenticeship model and your talent pipeline, which you may say, that's fine because we've got the people we need. Yeah, today you do. But they're going to quit. They're going to retire. They're going to move on to other things. They aren't going to be there forever. And we have to remember that the drudgery is often where we learn things. It's where we get that industry context. It's where we learn, oh yeah, that sounds like it would work on paper, but actually you don't. And you learn that in the messy administrative lower order work. And it's not lower order as in you're less than, it's work that you need to, it's your training wheels. It's where you figure this stuff out. And if a junior never drafts a contract, if an early career talent person is never responsible for drafting a contract because you just had an automated agent do it for you, that junior person never learns why the contract is written the way it is, why you include certain things, why when people push back and have asked to have something changed or amended or added into it, you go, no. Like, we got to get legal involved if we're going to do that kind of a thing. You never have that training ground anymore if you go too far with this. Now, to be clear, the solution to this is not to say, oh, okay, I don't want anybody to walk away from this and go, okay, so what Christopher is saying is don't automate anything and keep all your early career thing, anti-AI. That's not what I am saying. But what you need to do is you need to shift these drudgery roles, and I don't mean it in a negative sense, but you need to shift this so that instead of asking your early career talent or your administrative talent to just produce, you need to teach them how to manage the AI's production. So as an example, if you were to say, well, Christopher, what does that look like in practice? How might we actually do that? What you might want to do is change the way you're measuring it. So you may start assessing, you're not asking them to go, you're not asking that entry-level person, the entry-level consultant, no, I actually want you to tippy type into the keyboard the contract. And if you use AI, you're fit. No, actually you would go, I want you to use AI to do it. I don't want you wasting your time tippy tapping in there. But then once you get that, I want you to look at what AI creates. And I want you to see, what did it miss? What is it not considering? And I want to work with you and coach you on how to catch this stuff so that you can actually start focusing. And this is where it actually accelerates your talent pipeline. And a lot of the things you're doing is you now can spend more time investing in teaching that early career talent, that administrative lower order tier work. You can teach the people responsible for that some of these executive judgment, discernment, risk assessment skills, decision-making skills so much earlier in their careers. They don't have to spend 5 to 7 years in the slog of just being the whatever, just doing the dirty work. They don't have to do that anymore. You can say, I don't want you doing that dirty work, but we still need you here. But what we're going to do is we're going to prepare you for bigger things faster, because you're not going to need 3 years learning how to draft a consulting contract, because you're going to have AI do that really quick. But in a few months, you're going to quickly learn, hey, what do we put in our consulting agreements? What do we not? What kind of terms and agreements do we allow? What kinds of things do we not? And you're going to start to understand from the people, which I'm telling you is critical right now as we are coming on the gray tsunami. And while people are sticking around in the workforce longer and all this other stuff, with less younger people being just straight up born and entering the workforce, and a lot of people going out, this is going to reach crisis state. And so this need to make this shift is going to become essential for organizations to thrive in the future that's ahead. And now I'm telling you, after thinking through this, and even if you've heard me talk through this, I can tell you there's about 5 other massive strategic implications of this report. I just really wanted to focus on this early career administrative kind of lower order area, because it's a mistake I'm seeing so many people making right now. It's a conclusion so many are drawing to. I wanted to ring the alarm bell on this and say, please, for the sake of everything, don't make this mistake. But there are multiple other massive strategic implications that I think come out of this report, whether it's the way you do org design, the way you do compensation models, the way you build your tech stack. I don't have time to do all these, and I don't think you want to sit around for 6 hours as I talk through all of those. This early talent piece, though, is the one that will potentially torpedo your company in 2030 if you get it wrong today. And that's why I wanted to focus there. So with that, Project Iceberg, it really truly was. And I thoroughly enjoyed digging into the 21 pages of the thing. It truly is a fascinating map of the potential energy of AI. But we need to remember, it is a map of potential energy, not kinetic energy. It is not going to show us where the pipes are going to burst. It is starting to show us where pressure might be building, hypothetically. It might be showing us where there's tremendous missed opportunity, but it's not a GPS that says turn right now. So please do not let an MIT simulation of 151 million AI agents on a hypothetical tech stack and marketing claims lead you to make a really, really bad decision about 1,000, 100, 50, 10 real human beings that you currently have on payroll that are holding your organization together. And last but not least, look, if you need help auditing some of this stuff, if you need help auditing your talent or your org strategy or figuring out where in the iceberg you should be focusing and how, please reach out. If you need support, I'm launching the Future Focused Academy. It's already up now. I'm officially launching in January of 26. Or check out my website, christopherlind.co, and see the kind of work that I do. I would love to work with you and help you build a future that actually works. With that, I'll see you on the other side.